I spent my whole damn life in the city. I could go for broke, but the capital is in me. I spent my whole damn life in the city. Anywhere I go, DC's coming with me. I spent my whole damn life in the city. I could go for broke, but the capital is in me. I spent my whole damn life in the city. Anywhere I go, DC's coming with me. I spent my whole damn life in the city. I could go for broke, but the capital is in me.
Welcome, everyone, to District Divided, a DC sports podcast, more specifically, a Washington Commanders podcast. And there's breaking news. Adam Peters, now former assistant general manager for the San Francisco 49ers, has been hired as the Washington Commanders general manager. One of the top executives in the game has come to the district, and it's very, very exciting news. I am Amit. That is KDot. We're going to get into that hiring, where to from here with it. We're going to get into Adam Peters, what we know about him, and then we're going to get to our wildcard picks for the NFL. Pretty exciting slate coming up. And then we do after the pod, as we always do, and with a comment mailbag, which we didn't get to last time. But without further ado, KDot, the big news of the day for our Washington Commanders. Drink it in. Adam Peters, again, one of the top guys out there, someone that's turned down offers and interviews in the past because he is a California native. He loves the San Francisco 49ers, was able to go, you know what? This is the job I want. This position here with the Washington Commanders. Think about it. Under Snyder, no chance. Josh Harris, Bob Myers, that connection. Here we go, KDot. He is in the building. What do you make of it?
I fucking adore it. So like the angle of, as we've talked here on the pod, is that of course behind the scenes, Josh Harris and the ownership group have been working on this ever since they stepped into the door, right? Evaluating what's there and where moves they need to make to bring in guys. And what we were so impressed by was the fact that no news came out at all until they were ready to drop it, right? So like when Ron Rivera goes, then you start hearing, okay, these are the names of the guys that are coming in. Bob Myers is one of the guys that gets hired. Like, you know that this has been a long-term plan to get to this point itself, which makes us feel, which should make everybody feel good that there's adults in the room, in the building, with an idea of where it is they want to go and not flying by the seat of their pants on like whatever's happening, this, that, and the other, which is something that we've wanted, which is long-term sustained success. And the only way you get there is if you have long-term thoughts and ideas and game plans and you're ready to see all the way through. And the Bob Myers pick alone, you could see, knowing the history between him and Adam Peters, whether high school, college, all kinds of shit, they know each other, and getting him in the door. Adam Peters has said no to interviewing how many times over the last few years? In any article that you might read, whether the Athletic puts up the list of like, I know the Athletic loves doing where they interview a bunch of agents and guys around the league. He's always in that top bracket alongside John Lynch, right? A lot of people say John Lynch would not be able to do almost anything he does without having an Adam Peters next to him. And if you're looking across the league as far as those teams that are just a cut above the rest, San Francisco's been there. And San Francisco's been there in a lot of ways that are really exciting for an organization like us, which is that they make the most out of what it is they have. And they're also not afraid to do it different ways, right? Mm-hmm. The idea, like hitting on draft picks that are not necessarily the flashy draft picks, making sure that like Brock Purdy being able to come in for Mr. Irrelevant, they still get credit for doing something like that. I know that there's also the negative aspect of that as far as people looking at the Trey Lance trade, but if you read the articles around the Trey Lance trade that San Francisco had, it is very, very clear Adam Peters had nothing to do with it. Like, they make that abundantly clear. He was not in. There were only 4 people that were aware of what it is they were going to do with Trey Lance, and he wasn't there. And that's the thing, is not knowing exactly how things run inside these rooms, but knowing all the positivity about him. Who knows? He might have been the guy in the room who said, no, don't do it. And maybe that's why they didn't keep him. Like, I don't know. But the idea is, like, this is a dude that he's been around success in organizations that bathe in that success. He's been with Super Bowl winning organizations in New England, in Denver, and in San Francisco. It's just a matter of time before they get there, right? Mm-hmm. This is just a slam dunk knockout hire. This is the best guy we've had in the front office, you could say, since Charlie Casserly, probably. this is not Vinny Serrato. This is not Bruce fucking Allen. This is not anyone that we've seen come in and out of these doors over the last 20 something years. This to me is huge.
I would love to paint a quick picture. So, quick behind the curtain for you guys. KDot and I, when planning out this episode, we didn't have our general manager. And it needs to be said, based on all reports, he's hired to be the general manager. We've heard president of football operations thrown out a whole lot, and then GM. And then, so like the structure was a bit murky at first. He's the general manager here. So that needs to be said. But what we were planning on doing was I was going to make the case for Adam Peters, and KDot was going to make the case for Ian Cunningham. And we were just sort of going to present both candidates to you guys. So, having done some research into Adam Peters, I wanted to paint a picture as to the type of character that he is. So, we know about the Bob Myers connection with UCLA, right?
Yep.
And that these guys knew each other. And Bob Myers coming in, you could see the puzzle pieces, how instrumental this is. Well, so Adam Peters walked on as a D lineman over at UCLA and immediately realized upon seeing, I think it was Deshaun Foster or something like that, where he was just like, hey, I'm not going to be a pro football player, but I want to stay in football. So what does he do? He ends up taking a part-time job in the football department over at UCLA, turns into a full-time job. And one day he has to show two people around, Scott Pioli and Jason Lake. Now, if you know those names, those are general managers. And through that conversation, through that meeting, he impressed them enough that they said, why don't you come to New England? Because they were both with New England. So he became a scout over there and what is known as a 20-20-20 guy. 20 years old, works 20 hours a day, makes 20 grand a year. So you talk about work ethic, all right? And this is beginning in the year 2003. He's there till 2008. So his first two seasons, they win Super Bowls there. Was he responsible for them? No. And let's be very, very clear about that. So you hear he's got these Super Bowls. Relax. He was a scout. He even said it himself. I was driving people to the airport mostly, and I was occasionally just learning from other people. Yep. But what he did get was a relationship with Bill Belichick. What he did get was figuring out how things should run in New England. He credits his work ethic and his foundation to his time with the New England Patriots. If you've heard previous episodes, KDot has mentioned culture and how important it is that we get guys from these types of buildings. This is one. Then he spends time in Denver. And this was instrumental. Now he, is there. Peyton Manning's there. Ultimately, they go to 2 Super Bowls. They win 1. At that point, he goes from not just scout. He is a scout there early on, but then he becomes, I'm going to want to get this right, KDot, so I'm going to read it, the assistant college scouting director, and then the actual director of college scouting from 2014 to 2016. So 2 years as an assistant, 1 year as the director. But that's also where he meets John Lynch, because John Lynch is working in TV at the time. And so they end up having a sit down with a bunch of people. He happens to be sitting next to John Lynch. John Lynch, very impressed with Adam Peters because they pour over some film together. That's how he moves to San Francisco. That's how he becomes the VP of player personnel over there. And it was a dream job for him to be with the 49ers because he grew up as a fan of the 49ers. And what stuck out to me here, KDot, something Kyle Shanahan did, which is he was very exact about the types of characteristics and qualities he wanted from positions. Mm-hmm. And Adam Peters said, I'd never experienced that before, but he made our lives so much easier by telling us exactly the types of characteristics and qualities he wanted from specific positions. It helped them put a 3rd round grade on George Kittle. They ended up getting him in the 5th. That helped them identify Brock Purdy. Ended up being a 7th. They have, when you have very clear objectives, roles, responsibilities, which is what we're describing in winning cultures, and specifically with Kyle Shanahan, it makes me excited for the coaching search, KDot, because I think he's going to try and find somebody where he goes, I want another Kyle in that I want you to be very clear with me what you want from the quarterback position, what you want from your tight ends. That was where Kyle Shanahan was particularly had the spotlight put on him because it was in regards to George Kittle, right? So it's a very exciting hire. I just wanted to give you guys a very brief synopsis on him. There's a heck of a lot more detail there, but that's the kind of guy we're getting. He's been in winning organizations all the way through. They've been to Super Bowls everywhere he's been, and now he's our general manager, and he's very well connected. So it's very exciting, KDot.
No, wonderful deep dive on him. Yeah, I think they just speaking to that winning culture aspect of stuff, like the also the variety of which he's seen, right? So like the way that they do things in San Francisco is not the way they did things in New England. It's not the way they did things in Denver, right? So the idea of having a guy with a winning mentality that's seen that there are different ways to skin that cat to get to that promised land can let him be more informed in creating his own thing, right? So like Washington for the longest time has either been the team that hires someone that might have done well somewhere else, and now we're getting them on the back half of stuff, not really getting the guys that are on the come up that might have the sustained success for decades with us. And I look at this Adam Peters hire as someone that I look at this as someone that's going to be here with this organization for at least the next decade or two. And at least if he's not going to be here for the next decade or two because of whatever life has, that he's able to install a system and a philosophy on how to get things done that can reach success forever. It's the way that you look at like the Baltimore Ravens and how, regardless if it's Ozzie Newsome or Eric DeCosta, they have a formula and a way to do things that is built into the fabric of the organization itself that continues that sustained success. New England, everybody sees the rails come off right now, right? But if you think about it, the reason the rails have come off to a certain point right now is because all the guys who were so integral within the system got old. If you talk about 20-something years of everybody kind of being in the same thing, some of these guys kind of lose, and you got a head coach that's in 70-something years old. It's a little hard to keep track of, right? But what did you even see New England do that we just heard about this morning or last night? They hired Jared Mayo because they understand the culture itself is good. We just maybe need variations of said culture, but we're not going to go start over and do something else. We know we have something special here in the building, and we want to keep it. And that's what we're looking for, especially with a brand new start with a new owner and all these things that are coming to wash away all these 30 years is crap. Like you watch Bomani Jones talk about us and it's just a team of losers. And you hear other people. I get it. I get the cynicism. I get all of that. But we can really look at this organization and say, we have not seen ownership come in, maybe ever, and look at things the way they are and saying that we need to rebuild it really. And we're going to do it by not being bullheaded on our own or think that we know everything. We're going to bring in the best minds to really try to build something sustainable. This is exciting as shit.
It is very, very exciting. And yeah, like you had mentioned, Gerard Mayo hired with the New England Patriots, an internal hire. A lot of people were thinking Mike Vrabel. But there they are, continuing that culture, that Belichickian culture. By the way, and after the pod, Kate, I want to talk about Bill Belichick and potential landing spots. I think you and I might be on the same page there, but we'll see. We'll see. But that's that's more or less the wrap up on Peters over here, on Adam Peters. Any final thoughts before we move on to like where to from here?
No, I think that's just where I'm excited to get to, is the head coaching search and everything beyond.
So without further ado, why don't we go ahead and get into that? So now we got our GM position set up. We've got our GM position filled by Adam Peters. Now the question is, and a very quick note before we get into coaches, Martin Mayhew is technically a connection of Adam Peters. I'm curious to see, KDot, what happens if he's just gone and we're getting rid of all the Dan Snyder people and the Rivera people, or if he is willing to be an assistant GM under Adam Peters. I don't know what's going to happen there. I'm very curious about that. Any guesses there?
I don't expect anybody in the front office to be here long term. But what you can't do is, the NFL doesn't stop. So like one of the reasons that you hear Josh Harris say that they wanted to be thorough, but they wanted to be quick. Like the NFL does not, there's no time off in what you need to do to build and to be in the best position for your team. What you can't do is fire everybody wholesale, have Adam Peters show up. The rest of the guys that he worked with in San Francisco are still employed by San Francisco. It doesn't mean they're all going to jump ship to follow him. So you need to have pieces around you. And what you do in that transition, as long as we know Adam Peters is coming here and he's the final say on what happens, that's what matters most. Okay. So like the idea of like him delegating duty to any of these guys, what you think about Martin Mayhew, all this, we all knew the buck stopped with Ron Rivera, and we all know how all of this feel about Ron Rivera as far as talent evaluation or coaching up people, right? But if you have somebody who has professional experience in this field, it doesn't make sense that you have to oust them just to make everybody feel good. It's
Right.
Utilize them as best as you can. If you run up against a hiccup that, hey, this is going to work, then you can let them go. But we still need to keep the organization itself running.
Correct. All right. So then without further ado, why don't we go ahead and get into where to from here, right? So now Adam Peters is the GM. Next up, head coach. Some of you may be aware, some of you may not be aware, but we'll tell you anyway. So those people that are participating in the wild card round, right? Any potential head coaching candidates that are in the wild card round cannot be interviewed until Tuesday, basically. So if you're like, well, what about Ben Johnson? We haven't hired him. I've seen that we talked to Mike Macdonald. Yeah, the Ravens had a bye. We talked to Anthony Weaver. The Ravens had a bye. So that's the reason we're able to speak to them. You're also, my understanding, KDot, not able to hire anybody until January 21st. So don't expect a head coach in the next 2-3 days, because I believe that's not allowed. I do believe you need to wait until that date to be able to do that. If we're wrong, let us know in the comment mailbag. Obviously, I'll double check it myself as well. But the Athletic article, when mentioning all the different GM candidates, there were a few different names thrown out. Steve Wilkes was a name that was thrown out. Bobby Slowick, whose name is coming up more and more now that Houston's won the division. His name has come up. Then Ben Johnson, who is the odds-on favorite as of right now, depending on which sports book you're looking at, is also, well, he's the fucking favorite, KDot. So there are all sorts of names. Where do you see it going?
I don't know exactly. I would say that I would trust the reporting of some of the people that like we trust most, like John Keim, who me and you had a long conversation with before the pod.
Love John Keim. Also curious to hear what Tom Lavero thinks about the hiring of Adam Peters, but please continue.
We'll see. The
we probably won't. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, all is the Jesus. I think Ben Johnson's probably the name that most people are going to go with. He always has been the hottest coaching candidate, right? And if you're looking at what Washington has been able to do with scoring Adam Peters and getting the number one guy that anybody really had any thought process on, then one would also say, all right, they should really be in play for the number one coach, right? So like, I think that just naturally feels where the momentum's going. But look, a quarter of the league basically doesn't have a head coach right now. And the head coaching free agency tree, or not free agency tree, but the head coaching pool right now is some of the most exciting we've ever seen, right? Like as far as young up and comers on both sides of the football, guys that have shown that they can sustain success, guys that show that they have young, bright minds. This just feels like there's a plethora of guys. And look, in all honesty, I've almost stopped ranking them. Because I can look at positives on almost everybody that is on the short list of like guys that have been sort of rumored to be around us, right? Ben Johnson, I love what he's done in Detroit. I love what he's done as far as the talent that they had, not necessarily all being all-star first round top 10 picks, and be able to sustain a hell of an offense that match up against anybody in the league, right? I love Mike Macdonald. You guys know I love Mike Macdonald in Baltimore and what it is they've been able to do. I also love on the other side of the ball at Baltimore and Todd Monken. Older guy, has some head coaching experience on the college level. I can sell that to myself. Bobby Slowick.
Been a year. It's been 1 year in Baltimore. Let's keep that in mind too.
But before he was in Baltimore, he was at the University of fucking Georgia.
But if I could, that's true. That's true. So, but if I could jump in for a moment, there's one piece for me, because I'm on the same page as you, KDot. I'm not ranking them anymore. Here again, in doing the research on Adam Peters, I just want to read this bit from an Athletic article. Adam Peters lauds Kyle Shanahan for a directional tactic that he didn't see in New England or Denver. And I alluded to this earlier when talking about the history of Adam Peters and who he is. Quote, the best thing that Kyle has done is that he's told us exactly what he's looking for in each position. And that's the first time I've had that. The coaching staff has made our job as scouts a lot easier. End quote. That is from Adam Peters. That's the type of coach I want. The one that is going to tell him exactly what to look for in each position. Because when we talked about the San Francisco roster, KDot, there are a ton of all pros, right, in their positions. They have hit on later round picks. But now it makes sense. That quote to me cleared it all up. It was like, okay, we're not looking for the best all-rounded player necessarily. I want this specific skill set from this player. I need that. And if our coach is able to do that, I want whoever that is. It could be no one mentioned so far. But so long as our coach is able to do that, then you start hitting on draft picks because you know exactly what you're looking for. If you look at our prior drafts, we have no clue what the fuck we're looking for. That is 100% clear. So that is the difference I want here, KDot. I want a coach that is very clear in his vision and very clear, especially at the QB position, because that's the most important position. What characteristics do you want from that position, from the other positions? That's what I want.
No, I can see that. Like, of course. But I think that there is an element of Kyle Shanahan's a very unique breed, right? So, like, if you talk about Kyle Shanahan, you know his daddy, Mike Shanahan. You know the coaching tree that Mike Shanahan itself is at. If you want to look at Adam Peters' history, when he was in Denver and they won the Super Bowl, who was the head coach? Gary Kubiak. Kubiak, very much under the Mike Shanahan tree, right? If you look at all these guys, Mike Shanahan, Gary Kubiak, those dudes they're known for turning pretty much any running back into a 1,500-yard rusher.
Yep.
Like, there's a certain element of like, all right, this is the kind of, even when Mike Shanahan was here in Washington, there was a certain sort of offensive lineman that they wanted to fit what it is they were doing, right? So, like, there is an element of that, but I would say that I think most head coaches around the NFL don't even know that that's what to be articulated, or don't have the relationship with the GM to articulate that perfectly. I would say that very similarly to what it is that you see is being articulated in San Francisco is done in different ways for different organizations. I think if you look at the Baltimore Ravens have a culture of drafting certain guys that fit what it is they want to do as far as a team and as far as a culture. The New England Patriots, they usually have a certain type of guy that they want that fits their team, their culture, for their leadership structure, for everything they're looking for. Even when they're going to do free agents and stuff, they're usually looking for dudes that are over the hill with a chip on their shoulder. They want to prove everybody wrong, right? There's a certain mold that they have. I think that as long as Adam Peters himself can articulate to the head coach that there's a different way to go about this, and this is what I'd love to hear from you.
Okay.
I think that to me is something that can be taught. Like, that can be taught with time. I think most head coaches around the NFL probably don't have that mentality. They have the coach staff is like, all right, that's a Steeler guy. That's a Raider. That guy's a Raider.
And that's too general for me.
Way too general, right? So, like, the idea that you can have a GM that now has the experience of learning that valuable piece, that communicative tool to be used with a head coach to, hey, man, look, I need you to get mad specific on exactly what you're looking for, because I want to go out there and get it for you.
And that better come through in the interview. Right. So if the person's capable of doing it, give them to me. That's who I want as our head coach. And I think that speaks to the type of culture. And this is why the general manager position was so important, or president of football operations. It's for the brain. It's for this type of thinking. And I think Adam Peters brings it to the table.
Which is why I think, as far as that list of coaches, the reason I bring up a Todd Monken is kind of along those same lines. Is the idea to me, as far as being able to have a coach that articulate the type of player and guy that they want, usually is going to come with some experience to be able to articulate it well. So, like, when I look at a Todd Monken, I see that he's been around the league, he's been in college football, he knows the type of guys or whatever. Maybe he can articulate it better. I actually look at other guys like Mike Vrabel should be on a list. I'm not saying that he should.
If he can articulate that stuff, absolutely, and he's proven.
So guys like Mike Vrabel, the dudes that have experience, so the guys that, like, along the same lines as an Adam Peters, had experience in New England, and they had a New England way of doing things, right? So, like, I just think it opens up, to me, having a GM with this much experience and this much knowledge and different ways of doing things allows me to have so much more flexibility in what I think a head coach could look like for us, what it is the staff should look like for us, and the fact that all these positions have kind of opened up. I fucking adore Wink Martindale on the fucking defensive coordinator standpoint, right? So, like, I just think what's so exciting about this is the amount of flexibility that we have in things, right? Like, I just think the sky's sort of the limit as far from a hope or potential standpoint. So, like, I just don't think that there's anybody that fits any one particular mold. I love the Joe Hortiz, Mike Macdonald connection. I thought that would be awesome. But here's the thing. We got a Eugene Shen who has experience from the Baltimore Ravens and can bring what he does as far as analytics and stuff to the team. Now I have somebody that had experience as far as New England Patriots, another one of the teams that was on my list as far as stability goes. We have a guy who has experience as far as the San Francisco 49ers and the history of this. We have so many things that checked off so many boxes of the organizations and teams that I adore and I want to emulate that I'm completely cool with. Pretty much, I trust them to make the decision.
And those are the exciting times that are up ahead. And this is step one of many, but it's a really, really good first step here. And so why don't we go ahead and get into our wildcard predictions now, KDot, and then we get to the comment mailbag and quickly touch on after the pod. So are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. 4 games. We'll go in. Oh, I'm sorry. They're 5. I keep forgetting about that. Maybe 6. 6 games. 6 games, not 4, not 5, 6. All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and get into it in chronological order? So first up, we have Houston hosting Cleveland. That's 4:30 on Saturday.
Give me the Cleveland Browns. The Browns have a stellar defense, and they got one Joey motherfucking Flacco behind center. Look, CJ Stroud has been the anomaly of all anomalies. I know I've even shouted at you. If anyone thinks anyone can emulate what it is they're doing in Houston, it's off the record books. So one would say that it would almost be asinine to think rookie quarterback in the playoffs, you don't want to pick him because CJ Stroud's breaking the mold and all. But what I can do is say that Cleveland defense, along with what Joe Flacco has been able to show that he can do, and then knowing Joe Flacco's history and what he usually does in the playoffs, I feel pretty good about it. Browns.
Okay. Well, you know what's interesting is initially I lean Cleveland because I love this Cleveland team. But then I looked at the numbers a little bit more, specifically Flacco's. And as good as he's playing, I don't trust him to not turn the ball over. So I actually expect this pick comes more, I'm picking Houston, and it's not necessarily because of CJ Stroud. I think the Cleveland defense is spectacular, but I think Houston's defense can actually turn these guys over. And they did play earlier in the year. That was Davis Mills. CJ's presence alone changes the dynamic of this game. I think the play calling is drastically different as well, and Houston cannot be run on. So it is going to be, I know Jonathan Taylor did his thing. Jonathan Taylor is exceptional. The Indianapolis Colts are exceptional. Cleveland's good at running the ball, not great without Nick Chubb. I expect Joe Flacco to make a couple critical errors, which is a friendly reminder why you can't just win with anyone, especially at his age. And I've got Houston. Winning that one. Now let's go over to Kansas City hosting Miami in a fun one. The weather for that one. Oh my goodness. The number 2 seed. I'm sure Miami's wishing they had it right now because that is a cold, cold game. KDot, who do you have in that one?
Yeah, this one might be, it's already, if the weather holds up, the 3rd coldest game in the history of the NFL. Which would be nuts. In this one, I'm going the Kansas City Chiefs. The Miami Dolphins have been banged up to shit. If you're looking defensively, especially anything that have to do with their pass rush, anyone of note outside of Christian Wilkins is hurt. And then offensively, Waddle's been banged up, Hill's been banged up, Mostert's been banged up. They might have rested a couple of those guys to get them all ready to go for this week, but this is one of those things where I go back to what have you done when it comes to when the game's on the line in the playoff football in Kansas City's homes. That like it's gonna be cold as shit. I still think that stadium will be jam fucking packed because them Chiefs fans are nuts. And look, I know it'll be more about running the football than throwing the football, but when you do have to throw the football, I trust Patrick Mahomes over Tua, especially because Tua Tagovailoa has never won in a game under 45 degrees, which is the thing. And I like me some Isaiah Pacheco and Patrick Mahomes in limited throwing quantities, and that Kansas City defense doing what it is they need to do. It's going to be hard to catch that football, Tyreek. Real hard. It's going to hurt.
Yeah, well, guess what? It's also very, very hard for receivers that already can't catch in the Kansas City Chiefs to now catch, right? So it didn't get any easier for them either, which is why I think the game will be close. When Miami, this actually favors, in a weird way, Miami's style, in that they should be running a hell of a lot more. I think this forces them to do what they're good at. It's similar to the way I view the Buffalo Bills. More recently, they have forced themselves to run more. They're better at it. It helps them protect themselves from Josh Allen and the randomness. That being said, it's Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs at Arrowhead. I trust him. The receivers will make enough plays. Isaiah Pacheco will be good. Give me Kansas City, But don't be surprised if this game is close and comes down to the wire. But I got Kansas City. We then go over Sunday, 1 p.m. Buffalo Pittsburgh in another really, really cold game. And you look at the weather on that one, KDot. There was talk that the game might be moved to Cleveland. I mean, that's how crazy that one is. So go ahead. What do you make of that game, KDot? Who do you got?
I think the Buffalo Bills can beat anyone in the league.
Here we go.
And they can beat anyone in the league by 3 touchdowns. They can. I don't see it happening. I've been predicting since the beginning of this season that Buffalo has been on a record of losing 1 round earlier in the playoffs. And when everyone was up in arms about Buffalo not making the playoffs, I'm like, they're going to make the playoffs because they have to lose in round 1. They're going to make the playoffs because they have to lose in round 1. And they have made the playoffs, and it's time to lose in round 1. There is no reason at all the Buffalo should mop the fucking floor with the Steelers. They're going to be missing TJ Watt. Minka Fitzpatrick's coming back. He's only played in 10 games this season. Doesn't even have a pick yet. Quarterback for Pittsburgh, I have nothing to do with that. But overall, I trust Josh Allen to fuck them over in this game. I think there's only 2 variations of things that can happen. Buffalo wins by 30, or the game's close in the third quarter, and I'm feeling really good about my pick.
Let me tell you guys, before the pod, I knew it. I said it to KDot. I was like, can't wait for you to pick Pittsburgh. I know it's coming. Give me the Buffalo Bills. I hope you're right, though. I do think, again, this weather means that it's going to be more James Cook, that it's going to be more Latavius Murray. And the Buffalo defense recently has been playing quite well. So I think as it's going to be an old-fashioned game, lots of running, occasionally the ball's in the air. Give me Buffalo, and I'll explain after the pod why I'm rooting so heavily for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But give me Buffalo. Then we go to the NFC side.
The X factor in that game is Allen on the ground.
Allen on the ground. Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
Fumble!
Oh, man, that's certainly possible. We need KDot. Again, we'll get into it after the pod. Then we go over to the NFC side of things. Dallas, the 2 seed. They managed to get it. Hosting the Green Bay Packers 4:30 on Sunday. Who do you got?
Cowboys. They are a better team, and the stage is not big enough just yet for them to lose in a tremendous fashion.
That is fair. I will say this. The Green Bay Packers are so young, they don't know any better. Jordan Love is one of the hottest quarterbacks in the NFL right now, if you look at the numbers.
Yes.
And he gets Christian Watson back, supposedly. And Aaron Jones loves a game against Dallas. So we will see what ends up happening. That game can also be closer than people think, but give me the Dallas Cowboys. Then we go over to the night game, so we got Philly and Tampa on Monday night. Sunday night, I'm trying to remember what matchup that is. I should have written this down. Who's it going to be?
I would go there, but I feel as if I leave this screen on my phone, I might lose internet.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. 3-6. Well, go ahead, do Philly, Tampa Bay, and then I'll remember what that other matchup is in just a moment.
So this is the Philly Tampa Bay game is the game that I am the most on the fence about. I have changed my mind 5 or 6 times since the matchup itself has been. So what I say today might not be what I think tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I really do think, and then also this game, talking about weather, there should be like a monsoon sort of level conditions for this game down there in Florida. I don't trust the Philadelphia Eagles at all. I think they're clearly more talented than Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
They are so banged up.
Who? Philly?
Philly. Absolutely.
Yeah. I love Baker in these kind of conditions. I think he's one of those guys that can make some stuff happen. And I've been leaning towards the Buccaneers, but have just been too pussy at sometimes, so I'm just like picking the Eagles. But I will say something happened over the last 2 days that changed my mind, and I feel more solidified in this pick.
Jalen Hurts can't throw a football.
I'm picking the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because of the exchange between Jason and Travis Kelce on the podcast. If anyone realizes, Travis Kelce said something to Jason Kelce, and Jason had to shut the show down. and come back to record the following day.
Wow.
It got under Jason's skin. So I was thinking along the lines of Chad Ochocinco was talking about how, hey, the Eagles are just playing possum. They're going to be right back in it. There's something wrong. So
Yeah.
I think there's something legit wrong, and they're really upset. I'm picking Tampa Bay.
Okay. You're picking Tampa Bay. Both teams are going to try and give this game away.
Yes.
So that much is clear. Give me Philly finding a way to get it done. Also, because I'm rooting for Philadelphia. And once again, that will be explained after the pod as well.
I know you're going with this one.
Oh, yeah, you do. And then, of course, I don't know how we forgot about this. No apologies to Matt Regan whatsoever, though. The Rams
yeah,
and
my favorite
Lions,
matchup
which
ever.
is the favorite matchup of mine, too. But, like, the Adam Peters news, we get swept away by the moment. So that's the Sunday night game. Matt Stafford goes back to Detroit. There supposedly is a Stafford jersey ban. Now the question is this, KDot. Who wins the game?
Give me the Los Angeles Rams and Matthew Stafford coming into town and beating the Detroit Lions. I love this Lions team. And look, part of me selfishly just wants Ben Johnson to be available to fucking interview and come to town potentially. But look, I love this Lions team, but this to me is even Ben Johnson, as much as I love him, is not in the same class as Sean McVay. McVay's special. Maybe Johnson can get there one day. I'm hopeful if he is our head coach, he will. But McVay's special. And if you look at Matthew Stafford having this much time, knowing what's at stake as far as coming back, and knowing how much I dislike Matt Regan and would love for the first home playoff game for the Lions in 30-something years for their hearts to be ripped out of their fucking chest.
And it will
It's not a good thing. I like the Lions fans for the most part, I think, outside of Matthew Regan, but this just to me, I just think the Rams have too much firepower and are too smart to lose that game.
Okay. I am also going with the Los Angeles Rams. I think if Sam Laporta plays, I'm picking the Lions, but it's amazing to speak about a rookie tight end that way, but that's how good he's been for them. And it takes attention off of Amon-Ra, and he's great at blocking, which helps with the run game. Like his presence is much bigger than I think people realize. It's not just the receiving. It is the attention that he gets along with his ability to block. So I'm going to go ahead and take the Rams, emotionally charged environment. Michigan already won the Natty, so you got that. But LA Rams.
I'd actually say Sam Laporta, arguably with the downturn of Travis Kelce in Kansas City, has been the best tight end in football.
Yeah. Well, I think George Kittle will still, Isaiah Likely's up there. There have been some great tight ends. I think
Laporta's been off the charts.
All right. And now we need to get to the common mailbag. We're already running up against a hard stop. So we're going to zoom through these. Apologies. I'm just going to read them. And KDot, if there's anything you want to respond to, just do so. I'll give a moment's silence for each one, and then you can decide. Okay. Starting with the Hawk TV. Shout out Hawk. The Dallas Cowboys will be hosting us at Airbnb Field. Get it right. I do like the idea of Airbnb Field because every single time we host a team, it's their fans that run the entire show. So appreciate the comment there. And here's the next one from the Hawk. I watched the pod with Shannon and Kat and absolutely loved it. May God rest his soul. Wish Shannon would have sat down with the GOAT, Kevin Samuels. Now all I need is Shannon to have Charleston White on his pod, and I'm set with 2024. KDot, seems like you want a reaction to that.
Hawk, I like you, bud, but sometimes you say some shit that makes me afraid because I don't want to lose you as a viewer. I don't think we're on the same page on most things as far as this stuff goes, but I'm just going to put that out there.
Then we have another one from him. That and you all getting 1 million on this channel. I appreciate it. I don't exactly know what it's in reference to. I would love to get 1 million people on this channel, though.
Yeah, cool. 1 million views on this shit. Yeah,
let's go.
That's one of those comments I love you for, buddy.
We agree.
Just stay away from the Kevin Samuels stuff, man.
Here's the next one from Hawk. Being stuck in the shadow realm for 33 years is how Washington lost the D.C. PG County market and add Virginia in the mix. Whether you have watched from home or live, Cowboys fans in particular pack our stadium. Once again, I think that's the Airbnb Field. I think he nailed it with that one, KDot.
Yeah.
All right. Then we go on to the next one from him, which is with a defense that has given up the most big plays, does that mean players like Cam Curl had chances to generate turnovers? I'm in the same boat as you. I'm trying to think about that. Well, I guess the idea is if they're going to be big plays, maybe deeper throws. Cam Curl had an opportunity to pick a few. I will say this in defense of Cam Curl, and Jeremy Reeves, I think, hit the nail on the head with the discourse. He's been asked to do anything and everything in an otherwise not well coached secondary once Chris Harris left. We need to keep Cam Curl. I know it was a rough year, but extend the man. That's what I would say.
I think Cam Curl's one of those dudes that clearly have talent, and I just want to see what happens with proper coaching again.
And there we go. And then there's a score prediction. Mind you, in case you couldn't tell, these are all comments from about a week ago, which everything is different from a week ago. The the score prediction from the Hawk for the final game against the Dallas Cowboys, 50-20 or 65-17, as the Cowboys put on a show for their home crowd. Again, in reference to us. Then we go, KDot, can we show Chase Young the money? And that's the catch 22. Once again, I think it's so far removed, I can't remember. Do you want Chase Young back?
I find it hilarious that Adam Peters, our new GM, wanted him.
Then we go over to Hawk with his final comment. The Rock is my favorite wrestler, DX favorite faction, and the Brothers of Destruction are my favorite tag team. Brothers of Destruction were awesome, KDot.
That's a good list.
Yeah, it's a very, very good
DX
list.
favorite faction, I agree. Rock was never my favorite wrestler. Favorite on Mike, though. Favorite tag team, Dudley Boys.
I did not like the Dudley Boys. I was very much Brothers of Destruction. Undertaker,
come on, get the tables. Like that was my guys, man.
We got a couple.
Also, I'm a huge fan of the Acolytes. Farouk and Bradshaw were pretty dope.
We got a couple comments from Jess Anto. Appreciate the comments, Jess. If the Giants move ahead of us in the draft, I will lose my fucking mind. And once again, that situation would have been the Giants losing to Philly, us beating Dallas. Fortunately, neither thing happened. I'm looking for a competitive loss against Dallas with some of the backups and younger players really showing out, especially Howell, Forbes, Hudson, Ridgway, and Martin. Martin had a pick. Khalil Hudson had a nice game. I think they all have a lot of potential. Who knows? Maybe some Dotson and Turner catches would be nice as well. I would not play Robinson, and I want Terry to get his 55 yards, then sit him too. And Terry did get his yards, but man, we cut it close there, K-Dot. We most certainly cut it close. Then we got one more from Jasanto. I thought of something that no one is talking about. What if we do end up with the number 2 overall pick, and the Bears are sold on Fields, teamed with Marvin Harrison Jr.? They literally cannot trade out of the pick if they are in love with Harrison. They could lose him in one trade back. A draft analyst said it would cost Washington 2 third-round picks to swap picks with Chicago from 2 to 1. It's pretty wild with all the scenarios that could play out this offseason. I'm interested in Williams, May, so Caleb Williams, Drake May, and the possibility of having Howell compete with a later round quarterback such as Michael Penix or even Justin Fields. I'm not interested in any quarterbacks on any other teams besides Justin Fields. I want absolutely nothing to do with Wilson, Garoppolo, Carr, etc. Big ups to Flacco, though. He's playing well. Kid up. That's a quarterback conversation. What do you think of that?
I will say this. Adam Peters getting this job has changed my entire philosophy on this draft as well. I am in the boat to just do whatever it is they want to do. I will say that if Ben Johnson ends up being the head coach, my favorite person ends up being Drake May. I think he fits, but Ben Johnson does.
UNC connection as well. Yep.
So like I can see that. So like the idea is like the coaches right now, I'm not really ranking these draft picks either. And if I have somebody who's completely sold on Caleb Williams and it costs 2 third-round picks to swap from second to first, I might not love it in the moment, but do what you got to do.
Fair enough. And then we go over to Johnny Concert. Jess, real quick, my thoughts on it. I think that if Chicago really does want to build around Fields, I think they can move down to 3 and still get Marvin Harrison Jr. I do anticipate the number 1 overall pick, whoever has it, will be Caleb Williams. I anticipate us taking a quarterback. I would be very, very surprised if we took Marvin Harrison Jr. over what is supposedly a loaded quarterback class. There's a long way to go, though. Long way to go. And now Arizona. We have Adam Peters. Yeah, exactly.
Get him ahead of Arizona. That's all you
And then you'll be fine. So then we go over to Johnny Consor. Shout out, Johnny. Appreciate it. Long time. Thoughts on a Jim Harbaugh hire? There's been some smoke about him recently going back to the NFL. Would you rather break the bank for him or go a cheaper, younger route like a Ben Johnson from Detroit? Neither will be cheap, in my opinion, considering the market for both of them. But my preference, again, we talked about it. Whatever Adam Peters wants to do, I trust the guy. In Adam, we trust. In Josh Harris, we trust. Whatever he wants to do. If he feels it's Jim Harbaugh, let's do it. If it's Ben Johnson, let's do it. If it's up to me, I just want to win, man. I don't care who. I honestly don't care who. What about you, KDot?
The what it costs, who gives a shit? It ain't my money. And there's no cap. So like, I don't care. But the beyond that, with the Adam Peters hire, I am less stoked on a Jim Harbaugh. The only reason being, even though Harbaugh can fit that philosophy as far as he would be a guy that knows what he wants.
That's a Belichickian, like, controls everything type person.
That's looking at what happened to San Francisco, even though it wasn't his fault. I blame the front office completely about the chasm to grow. There was a chasm. And I think what happens with Jim Harbaugh learning from that lesson is he needs to be in control. I don't blame him for it. You learn from your mistakes. You learn from prior experiences. But if we're going to be more of the GM-centric and coach philosophies working as a tandem, not one trying to cut out the other, I'd probably stay away from Jim as much as I love him prior to the Adam Peters.
I think Harbaugh goes Chicago or LA, depending on what he wants. Does he want Caleb Williams or does he want Justin Herbert? I don't think it's I want Justin Fields
Chicago
situation.
jobs isn't open.
What'd you say?
The Chicago job isn't open.
Oh, true. I
stupid.
forgot Eberflus. Wow. Thank God that's not us. And then we go over to Vindo. Shout out Vindo. I don't think EB is going to be here, honestly. And honestly, I don't think so either. I think we can move on from there, but again, we'll see. And Adam Peters will have his intro press conference at some point, and so we will give you our reactions to that as well. That was the Common Mailbag. This is District Divided, DC Sports Podcast, more specifically a Washington Commanders podcast on this joyous Friday where we got our guy, Adam Peters, hired as the Commanders GM. If you enjoyed the episode, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, comment as you always do, and KDot?
Share this shit. And in Adam we trust.
In Adam we trust. Share this shit after the pod begins right now. So KDot, we're coming up against a hard stop.
Out. Come on.
Run out.
Let it out.
Belichick could land in the NFC East. I'd need Dallas and Philly to win just enough not to fire their head coaches. That is it. If Buffalo loses, I think McDermott's gone. And I think that is a very attractive destination for him. I know he loves New England. I don't think he gives a shit about being in the division. I think he'd do it. What do you think?
I think it would be a gross miscalculation to get rid. If you're like, I don't like Philly. I don't like Dallas. Fuck them both. Fuck them terribly. Fuck them with a rusty spoon. Fuck them. Right. Like, but I do think it would be a gross miscalculation for them to fire either Mike McCarthy or Nick Sirianni. I think
Sirianni maybe loses the locker room though, KDot.
Once again, I think what people aren't taking into consideration is the fact that Philadelphia lost both their coordinators last year, and that takes time. Like, and Sirianni did a damn good job with this team, getting them buy-in or whatever. Usually there is a Super Bowl hangover. That's another thing that people aren't taking into consideration. It's not just usually because the team comes back and they think they have everything. It's also a mentality of even the players considering, hey, we made it there. It'd be easy to get back. And it's not. You got to go back to the drawing board, right? So, like, there is a learning through all of that together that I just think would be bad. That being said, is Bill Belichick an upgrade over either one of them? Potentially? Yeah. So, like, does that scare the shit out of me? Absolutely. I don't want him anywhere near us. Right. That being also being said, like, the Sean McDermott one is the one to me that would make the. I've been a person that says Buffalo needed not panic because of how involved in stuff they are. The only thing with McDermott is that you do reach a point where if they're losing one round earlier each playoff, this seems like a sustained.
That is clear regression. Yeah,
it's clear regression, and there is an element of knowing, and you hear the way that Bill Belichick treated Tom Brady, which Tom Brady got tired of and wanted to go to Tampa Bay, but he put a boot in Tom's ass to a point in which he just got done with it. I think Josh Allen needs a boot in his fucking
big
ass.
time. And it would only be for 3-4 years. That's the thing. I don't anticipate Belichick staying for 10. Like, I think he gets the wins record.
And Belichick
maybe
being able to take it to the Eagle. Belichick being in the same division as the Patriots, be able to take it to him. He would like that, I think. So,
and he still gets to dick on the Jets whenever. Like, the Dolphins they're figuring themselves out. Like, it's the AFC East is, funnily enough, a very good division to be in if you're the Buffalo Bills guy. Like, it's, oh man, that's what I'm rooting for more than anything. Go to Buffalo, because I could also see, KDot, of these jobs available, none of them are that attractive if I'm Bill. I don't know if he's willing to wait a year to get some of these other jobs to open up, I have no clue. There'd be a lot of pressure if the Eagles and Cowboys did lose early and did not fire their coaches. Those guys would be on the hot seat. Bill could wait a year and get that. He could. So I want Buffalo to open up.
That to me is my interesting part. Like the idea of who's going to be available coming up outside of these playoffs. Like, but I will say this: if I'm an owner looking at Bill Belichick, I don't necessarily need to even win now. Like, I think that if I'm the Atlanta Falcons and I see a Bill Belichick and I'm Arthur Blank, I back up Brink's truck, give him $200 million and say, just build me the culture you had in New England. Build me something that will be sustained. There's no cap.
I know. No cap. It's just how many years is that for? I'm just so curious.
You will never be a part of another organization ever as long as you're involved in football. Here's a 10-year, $200 million deal. You'll be 80-something years old if you can get out of this. Yeah. But it's just to keep them under wraps. It's just like, hey,
10 years, 200
something.
Hey, Bill, leave whenever. The 200 is yours no matter what. Just
leave whatever build me something sustainable. Remember, if the coach leaves, he doesn't keep the money. But if we fire him, they get the money. But I think with a Bill Belichick, if I'm an Arthur Blank who's just been like, dude, how long I've been at this thing? How close have I gotten?
True.
And I don't have it. And I just, every time there's somebody new, we're rebuilding from fucking scratch.
Yeah.
Give me something sustainable. Just give me something sustainable.
Love it.
And like that to me is the hand the keys over. It's akin to Mike Holmgren in Seattle, which he never gets enough credit for doing. When Mike Holmgren left Green Bay and went to Seattle, he built something there. Pete Carroll, of course, took them over the hump. There was a lot of Matt Hasselbeck bullshit, but the idea is I need to build a team and a franchise that can even get used to the idea of winning.
Yeah, and actually just relating to Buffalo again, I think McDermott is sort of that guy that like, hey, he took them further, and now they have this like sort of Super Bowl bust mentality when they're spoken about with the media. And if he can't get them over that hump, how many more years are you willing to give the guy? I know it maybe feels harsh, but like there's a window here, and Josh needs to experience a championship game or Super Bowl before it turns into a psychological issue. So anyway, very curious stuff. Excited to see how this all unfolds. Thank you guys for listening. We're up against the hard stop, so we'll see you next time. Take it easy.
Bye, everybody.
In DC, we're just hoping that you listen.